Hello, hello. Yes, this is Jean. We are live at Tell the Everyday Life Lesson podcast with a special episode 217 already. And the clock is ticking down for about 24 seconds. And then we have a special guest, Meena McCullough. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. Um, it's always strange if you don't do that and say that you know someone for a while actually, but how often do you say each other's last name? And let's go and start the show. I'll do a little bit of intro and then we'll ask Mina to come in the show as well. Yes, this is Sean. If you don't know what this is about, this is Tel. You might always see me on Tuesday as well, but this is Friday. Today, Friday, the 15th of July already. We are the mid of July. It's scorching hot here in Dallas. So I know most of you are not in Dallas, but Mina and I are. The guest that I have today is actually also from, the same area as I have. And I think the talk of the day is how hot it is in Dallas. I hopefully we talk a little bit about more interesting thing than just the weather today. Um, if this is the first time for you at the show and you haven't liked us yet on Facebook, we always have to do that, or on YouTube Live. If you follow us on YouTube Live, it would be a great thing. It's a new channel to like us there. But without further ado, Mina, there is so much to tell about her, so let me do a little bit introduction of her, and then I ask her to tell a lot about herself in the show first. But first of all, she's a doctor of physical therapy. She's a lecturer, she's an entrepreneur, she is also a ballroom dancer, which most of you know that is my greatest passion. But most of all, she's an investigator, as she calls herself, of human movement and pain. And that's all because she has experienced that herself too and had to find out actually ways for herself to, become mobile again and actually now become a really awesome athlete. Now, I probably don't do right with this short summary of what Mina is all about, but I'll ask her in the show right now. So please say welcome to, well, you can do it, but if you send me a comment and I'll see it, say welcome to Mina. And Mina, thank you for being in the show. Our guest can see you now. And it's good to see you. Well, I saw you 2 weeks ago, I guess, in the competition, ballroom competition, in a completely different things. If you say something, we can see if the audio is working or not.
Yes, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Um, Tell us a little bit about now who you are, what you do, and what drives you in life.
Okay. And I'm going to start with the last part of the question. I believe people, and I found this to be true for myself also, to need to follow their passion in life and be able to continuously grow. So those are the two things that really drive me, as well as problem solving. And so usually with problem solving, the problem starts many times with myself. And then when I start to learn more, I really like to show other people, add it to my repertoire of knowledge, and really, like I said, grow myself and help others grow as well.
Cool, cool, cool. That's you said it very short, but that's not a small task, if I may
No.
say. What make you come to that point?
So essentially, my story in a nutshell is that I was always an athlete growing up. I did dance at an early age, tap, jazz, ballet until sixth grade or so, and I just have always been the type of person that asks why. So I've always asked why is something, always wanting to know how something works. And so when I was in my 20s, I was a college athlete. I was a road cyclist and a mountain biker. And during the fittest portion of my life, I got struck with chronic illness. Essentially, people told me that I had fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, lupus. I was diagnosed with all of those things. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks because most of my friends were going to parties and uh, drinking and worrying about grades in school. So that was a real struggle. And that really defined, I would say that was a really defining moment and a really defining time in my life to find my life's purpose early on. I mean, at the time, I did not know it was my life's purpose. I just thought it was this terrible thing that had happened to me and I was in over my head and I had no idea who to turn to, what information to listen to, how to cope. Um, just everything was all in shambles. And luckily, I was able to recover enough to go to physical therapy school because I thought, well, if I know more, that's going to help me more. And so I always believe that knowledge is power, and the right knowledge is especially power. So um, I went to physical therapy school, and I learned a lot of great techniques. I learned about anatomy. I am now actually doing dissections in a cadaver lab as well to continue to learn about anatomy, because one thing about anatomy is it is so vast that even anatomists keep discovering new things about the body. We think something is set forever, but we're still discovering, which is amazing because the body's been around forever, right? And so I essentially went through this journey, and dance was a huge part of it, of really learning what are the principles that I need to do to stay healthy, happy, and continue to do what I love to do. Because at the end of the day, pain and problems isn't really an issue unless it's really getting in the way of something that you love. And I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to settle. Of course, I felt sorry for myself for a while, but I wanted to keep trying and keep trying. So I went through this journey of nutrition, movement, alternative therapies, conventional therapies. But essentially, I was one of those people that have tried everything. So I've just kind of come to this part in my life where dancing has been a huge help, especially with the teachers and coaching in the DFW area. It's absolutely amazing. And even though I have my doctorate in physical therapy, I've learned so much from my teachers. So right now, my practice of physical therapy is kind of incorporates a lot of things that I've learned from dance. And I think that's incredible. And so, um, just using techniques and developing techniques, new techniques. So now I essentially have some inventions or products. I'm a product developer because I saw a gap in a need. I needed something, it didn't exist. I built it at home from encouragement from an engineer. And so now I'm on this journey to figure out how to build my company Body Spring and launch my products and really help people figure out how to break deeper into their form, how to understand their bodies better, how to listen to their bodies better through movement. Because what I find the biggest problem is a trainer or coach can tell you something or show you something, or touch you in a certain way to give you a tactile cue to move a certain way, but unless you feel it within your own body, it's really hard to replicate. And even if we do feel it, it's still hard to replicate. So how can I come up with a tool to help with my own pain at first? And then as I kept asking questions, I started to work with athletes in the clinic. I really started to notice that these tools help with athletic performance, with form, with technique. It's the same tools and techniques that also help with pain. The only difference is that if somebody has pain, sometimes we have to start at an earlier step. But so it's just been a discovery for me, and just been an amazing journey.
Oh, amazing. Well, that in itself is also an amazing story in itself. Sorry that you had to go through what you have to go through, but they say, the two most important days in your life are first the one that you were born, and the second one is you find why you were born, right? So I think your whole story is kind of a testimony of that. The other thing that struck me is what you like is, pain and trauma might actually not be even a big deal, except when it stops you from doing what you want to do, right? Which really actually resonates well with me. Most of my listeners know that I work with a lot of trauma patients that went through abuse situations, and it's true. Some people just don't want to leave the couch anymore. And with some talks, I hope to get them off the couch. But if they don't want it, the trauma is maybe not a big deal at all, or the pain is not a big deal at all, unless you want to do something like you wanted to be an athlete and didn't even know that you would become a competitive dancer maybe at that time. But you are, and a beautiful one too. So I'll applaud you for that and bringing that to the world. And then in the end, it is, you can keep it to a small circle, but then you actually shine your light as wide as you can by creating, and I will say it a few times, guys. It is bodyspring.fit. It's not bodyspring.com. So sometimes if you picked up on that and you want to look up what Meena is all about, go to www.bodyspring.fit. Do I say that correctly? Bodyspring.fit. And then I'll ask
Yeah.
her a little bit later. You can read it why it's called body, and the word spring is important here. Why it's called body spring, because I think that's an interesting thing too. I'm a student of movement since I was six. I say I studied martial arts since I was six, and then later on I added a dance to that. So I definitely am very interested in all the discoveries that Meena has done. And I hope you continue your work, by the way, for a very, very long time. There are many dancers that I can connect you with and teach you with that can help you with your research and developing the tools that can only help us become better athletes and just have a better life in general. That's what I think it is. Tell me a little bit more about. You went quickly over it as the I always say pain and body that doesn't know any time, right? Trauma and pain stays some sort of locked in our life and it gets triggers again, and you use that clearly as a motivator to do things. Tell me how you do that with your clients or patients when you see that they can locked into their pain, almost sometimes embrace it, and sometimes it becomes their identity. I see that too with trauma as well, that if you take the pain of the trauma a little bit away, that they like, oh my gosh, I kind of lose a little bit my identity here too. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it is very challenging for people. And it's also, let's see, I feel like you kind of asked me two questions in one or a couple
I did.
questions in one.
Good at
Um,
that.
I guess first of all, I'll address, yeah, I think definitely learning about fascia was really interesting because it's essentially the connective tissue that's everywhere in your body. And
Tell
traditional,
people what fascia is. I read about it as preparation for this interview, but I think it's an organ, right? If I understood it well, but I don't think a lot of people would. If I asked them, tell me what your organs are, they would put fascia in that list.
yeah, yeah. So sometimes they say, let me tell you about your biggest organ that you've never heard of. And it's
Okay,
fascia.
okay,
Because it per square inch it's your biggest organ. However, it's more than just an organ. It's dictates how your muscles move, and essentially what it is, it's a map of your connective tissue and how it's connected together. So think about like a road map. We have a map of where the streets go and where they exit, and where a smaller road is, where a service road is. So the fascia is a lot like that. There's a lot of different types of fascia, but connective tissue, all it is tendons, ligaments, all of the glue and the little things and material in your body that's not an organ. It's like all of the rest of it, essentially.
so I,
And
I
it
I saw
creates
it like
intent.
it's the stuff that kind of holds me together. Is that a good way of saying it in layman terms?
Right. It's the stuff that holds you together.
Cool,
Perfect.
cool. What happens if it doesn't function well?
So people, it can be stuck to itself or stuck to other things. And it can be the reason people have pain or, can't move better.
Okay, that's I mean, as a dancer, that sounds horrible. If you're couch potato, to be honest, then you think, what's the big deal? So, do you see that it is possible that some people don't even know how much they could move if the fascia would function better?
Absolutely. And I think the new research and what I like to investigate about fascia is what are the most effective ways to train the fascia? Because now fascia is being talked about in certain communities, but it's all about people only have so much time in the day and they only have so much money. So what I like to look about at is how they can help themselves and developing that awareness and then training the fascia effectively. So but I want to tie it back around to a question that you had asked, because one kind of interesting side note about fascia that I don't talk about often is that it's implicated in emotional problems as well. So we say that emotions can essentially become locked in our bodies in certain areas.
Definitely.
So fascia has been implicated in emotions because they're finding new cells in fascia that actually have brain cells in them. So essentially, your whole body has brain cells. So if you can think an emotion, you can feel it too. And where is the feeling? It's in the fascia within the connective tissue that I research. And so not only does the fascia, you know, have problems with trauma mentally, but also nutrition and physical movement. So this is really a powerhouse thing we're talking about.
Cool. Cool. So you know what strikes me then immediately, because there are dancers they go to physiotherapist, other one goes to chiropractor, some other ones go to another therapist. What should we do?
Right. And I'm the truth is I'm still figuring that out myself after over 10 years of being a physical therapist, but
Yeah.
some of the techniques that I put forward are the easiest that I've found and the most effective and time saving ways. And so a lot of it is understanding these maps and teaching people how to take one movement and connect it with another and connect it with another, which is a lot of what dancers do, anyways. But it's more, instead of being in the studio with heels on and you have a teacher saying settle your hip or weight transfer. It's essentially me in a clinic. I'm cueing people to, okay, contract this muscle. Okay, push here. Okay, push a little bit less. That's too much pressure. Okay, push a little bit more over here. And I'm trying to manipulate this map to get you the most effective results.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I think all dancers should go to you after hearing this. But because yeah, we do say that I'm a dance teacher, as you know myself. We do say weight transfer. We don't sometimes don't even know what we say when how that resonates with the other person, right? They don't even know what that means to do. So more and more. Um, I'm teaching a little bit more about, not more and more, that's a little bit the method I use, more from the body mechanical point of view and a muscle tension point of view, is how to do that, and don't use all these fancy words that sometimes have no meaning at all for people. So you
Right.
you give them those principles.
Yeah, a lot of times, just like you said, simple tactics. But I also, one other big belief of mine is that it's different. I feel like as you get older, obviously our connective tissue ages, but
Hmm.
you can still make great progress with it. But I feel like a lot of these people that are athletes, whether they're dancers or any athlete or any active person who just wants to be active later into life, is they need additional specific training. And so they're busy also. So what is that best bang for their buck on that specific training? And just being a dancer and being an athlete, I see so many people get injured for no reason where they didn't actually have to get injured, but they just decided to push through, or they didn't maybe have some small but key pieces of information as they were trying to, I don't know, maybe like settle their hip, but they were just hurting their hip. And it's hard at first because I'm not a dance expert either. And I'm the first one to say that, I'm not a professional. I'm not, there's so many amazing dancers that I respect so much, but I think there's kind of a gap in athletes of, training from the people that they want to be like. You might not be able to get there the same way they did. And
Yes.
so I like to look at that for myself first, because I always look at this, okay, this amazing person who I respect so much is telling me to do this, but my body doesn't do it. So what can I supplement to try and bridge that gap?
Cool. Yeah. So in dance, at least in the method that I embrace, which is my colleague wrote a book about it called the Gem Method. So it kind of it's cool. We have another podcast I already told you about. We should invite you there too. It's called Dance Busters. It will go live next week. So this is a little commercial break, guys. But anyhow, so what Mina tells you, that the way to get to a point is not always the same way for it. Well, not always. It's most likely not always the same way for everyone, but we're sometimes so focused only on the end result. And then the other thing that I kind of heard between the line is, as dentists, we are trained in a certain way, but as students or our students, sometimes what they see we do is not always how we do it. and that sometimes could cause, I noticed, physical problems and could even lead to injuries if they do a movement because that's what they think they see it's happening. I think the approach that you have, where you explain people what the pathway is, so to speak, to get to the movement, is very helpful. You know, so I think it's very interesting that maybe we should have interviewed you before we wrote the book, Gem. Who knows, right? That we would have other things in there. But this book is more about
Thank
all
you.
movements that you could make, right? And why you make them and how you make the choices to the movement. What you could be very helpful and instrumental with, I guess, in your technique is actually help people how to make that movement and how to get to that point to make them, in a certain way. So,
Right. And I think it would be a collaboration because, like I said, like you said, I call myself an investigator. So
yeah,
I'm still investigating these pathways myself. And what's helpful is having the background knowledge of anatomy, but what's not helpful is not being able to actually do a lot of the movements myself.
yeah,
So it would be more of a collaboration for sure. And I consider working with any client a collaboration to begin with because I always tell people, I'm not in your body, you're in your body. So I can do the best I can from the tools that I have and the knowledge I have to help your body. But at the end of the day, I'm not in your body. So,
yeah.
communication is key.
Yeah, I like those sayings. You should make those quotes. By the way, these are very good, good, powerful quotes. I mean, I love quotes, by the way, and blur them out, appropriately and inappropriately. But yeah, that's so true. I'm not in your body, and you are not. You are not in my body. So I love that process as a dance teacher and as a martial arts to almost help people to find the movement that suits them. Right? I am very opposed, to be honest, that a movement always has to be like that because someone in the past defined that is the right movement. And that for me has nothing to do with dance at all. I just say it out loud. You can hate me for it, by the way. I get hate mails if I say these things. Because some people do that, on the count of two, we have to put our arm out. Says who? Yeah, it's a defined movement, and sometimes that is nice to do that, but I also would like people to make their own choices. Um, and you can make better choices if your body functions better, function better. Hence, your fascia needs to be in good health. If that is that a good way to say it? In good health, is that? Can you say that? Like with your stomach or with your heart? Or
Absolutely. And it's a sliding scale, right? Just like with your stomach or your heart. And
yeah,
so, meeting your body where it's at, understanding where your body's at and what it can do and can't do. I feel like dancing in heels, specifically for dance, adds a whole other layer for women, which has been interesting for me to navigate as somebody who never wore heels before I started ballroom dancing. And just in finding,
yeah,
how to manage that and still look good, and not having grown up doing
yeah,
it because especially women get into it when they're in their 40s 50s.
yeah. Late. Oh, you're phrasing, Mina. Okay, yeah,
Naturally your fascia ages, and so you know you have older fascia, not that it's less healthy, it's probably less healthy than somebody in their 20s, but the cool thing, like fascia and muscles, they can both be worked to be made better.
yeah.
So there's
Okay, there's hope.
everyone can get
There's hope for us.
better. Yeah.
So, yeah, and just little side topic about heels, guys. We're talking here about ballroom dancing. In case you're just thinking, what kind of dancing is that? Where women dance on heels? Well, it's called ballroom dancing, and specifically Latin styles. The heels are sometimes going too high. I always warn my students to not go over 3 inches high heels. In itself is actually a little bit ridiculous. I love it, by the way. I love how it looks, but I
Yes.
know how stupid it is actually for our body to try these movements that we do on heels that are actually, if you just look at the muscles of your calves, they actually don't get properly used because we are constantly on heels. And so that's almost like a counterintuitive thing, but Mina can talk more to those things as well. Um, So, but it is what it is. It's the style we
I
have.
have,
Yes,
yeah,
go on, go on.
I have a thought on that because I've thought about this a lot, and it right when I first started, I'm like, do I really want to do this? I've had a lot of pain. I've had a lot of foot pain, and in physical. So when I lecture to the University of North Texas Health Science Center. And, the students there, the curriculum in physical therapy school is such that, heels are really bad, they're terrible. And a lot of people also believe that. I have somewhat of a modified version of that belief. I
Ooh,
feel like they're bad for most people if we don't use them right.
that's
However, there is evidence that if we're activating our muscles correctly, which is really hard to do because our foot can become very stiff as we age, or if we're born with any type of misalignments. But if we use the heels um, effectively, not saying that I do or can all the time or ever, but I'm working on it. It can actually activate more muscles and deeper core muscles up your leg because you're using that arch more. Now, I don't know like what height would be best, but actually bringing the arch forward or bringing the back of the foot or the top of the ankle forward a lot of times can activate the arch, and so that is could be potentially healthy for your legs and your back. And I believe that's what actually helps trigger leg action, but I don't know for sure, right? So I don't want to speak like I am some super educated Latin ballroom dancer, but there is a lot of controversy on this,
yeah. There
and
is
I do
there is.
believe usually it is bad for people, but I also believe it's just due to the society that we've grown up in. We wear shoes. Our toes are squished. If you're a lady, you wear pointy toe shoes, which squish your foot even more. We have no, when, if you go back to the caveman ideas, we were barefoot and we could sense where water was from walking on the ground. So we had this sensory input through our feet, and this connectedness with the earth and the ground, which we don't have anymore and we haven't had for years, and our parents haven't had and our grandparents haven't had. So if you think about how genes evolve, it's no wonder that our feet, even though they're the only thing that contacts the ground as we walk, it's like the weakest part of most people's bodies.
Oh,
So
so true.
that to me is fascinating, and so we're not really given the tools in our society to walk well in heels at all.
Yeah. So, Mina is kind of a little bit frozen for a moment, but I think she just finished her sentence. Yes, there you're back. You were frozen for a moment. Well, I have something to offer there, and definitely I don't have the ultimate opinion on this matter at all. I love Latin dancing. Clearly, I love to help ladies and make super beautiful Roomba walks. If that means anything to our listeners, what a Roomba walk is, and heels just really enhance that to that picture. And that picture is, of course, created by society, right? We were not born in heels, and we think it's beautiful now because that is our culture gave that to us. But I grew up in martial arts, and martial arts is purely on barefoot, right? And at least the style that I did. And then one day, when I was about 16, 17 years old, I went for the first time to Indonesia, and because that's the style that I was doing at the time, and I did actually my whole life still doing it. And then I had to demonstrate there. What I did not know is that everyone walks there a lot on barefoot, and they walk through rice fields, and they walk over gravel and all kind of things that with scorching hot temperature on it, and it feels like they don't feel it. And Jean had to do there a demonstration to show his skills. Now, I was good with everything except walking with my bare foot on those not so nice surfaces. And so what they did, they put some wooden planks there, and they were not shaved at all. And so they thought they would help me a little bit, but the splinters were literally going into my feet. I was pretending that it was all good, and then afterwards I had to see literally a doctor to get my feet healed because I was literally not used to it. Strangely enough, I stayed there for about 6, 7 weeks. I can tell you, Mina, after only a few weeks, I was already used to it. It was incredibly how fast My feet were, of course, strong because I was practicing on bare feet all the time, but it was on like nice gym floors and all that kind of stuff. And but it was incredible how quickly I adjusted to that. Probably not to the level what they did. They played soccers on their bare feet and all that kind of stuff. But I thought, if I do this for half a year, I probably would be the same as. It's incredible how flexible and how adjustable our body is. I always thought that's the most amazing thing, and that's
Yeah,
what that drives me, to be honest. There's always like
right.
it's almost limitless, and if you
Yeah.
have, I hope you also meet some martial arts in what they can do with their body. It is literally sometimes astounding what they are capable of. It defies almost all things that we think we know about the body. It
Yeah.
really is.
Martial artist, aerial artist,
Aerial
acrobatic,
artist, yeah, just
a lot of, yeah,
do the
dancers.
whole dancers, of course. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Parkour. I have a friend's son that does parkour, where it's just like flipping
yeah.
around industrial playgrounds. It's amazing,
It's
and so that's why the foot is one of my favorite areas of study. It's
yeah,
often neglected, and you're right. So you asked how I treat patients in the clinic. Sometimes I'll work with them on their feet, even if they have back problems or hip problems. We'll definitely address the feet because of the biomechanical chain, just like you would buy orthotics at a store to stack your foot on top of your ankle, on top of your hip, on top of your back. Well, you want to build an orthotic within your foot to stack it yourself because that's going to create muscle memory for you. So we always address the feet. And, sometimes I'll ask somebody to do something and they'll say, I can't. Look, I can't do it. But I was like, okay, just do 10 repetitions. Sure enough, within 10 repetitions, they're
they're
doing
done.
it.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
always like, wow,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
think that I could do that. And that's the amazing thing about the brain body connection. You ask your body to do something and it will respond. You just have to ask it the right way.
yeah. Well, really, really cool, and it's definitely since we already guys went to the paddle dance, let's continue there a little bit because a lot of people want to make those nice movements, and everyone who had lessons with me, at least on a competitive level, know this. I always start with the feet because most of the time, if the feet is not strong, your legs would not look beautiful. I'm sorry to say, but you have to work those feet, and
Hmm.
it is true what it is. And if you have, but I would say don't go to Mina if you have problems already. Go to her with your goals, and then she can help you maybe already develop the feet and the movement of the feet and the body and the fascia in the right way. Because this is another culture that I see a lot. Of course, we typically go and see a doctor or a therapist in any form when we have a problem. We are great in solving problems. We should really think a little bit more from, hey, what is it that we want to do with our bodies, and then push ourselves through that and keep it healthy. Now, I am very super blessed. Let knock on wood. I'm over 60 years old already, and I have very minor injuries, and I went through the toughest martial arts. Seriously, very minor. So there's a lot of luck, probably there too. But I was always very conscious by my dad about the function of my body. He was a sports instructor and an old Red Beret commando. Um, so he did that, and one of my drives, maybe you can say to that too. You came in dancing for dancers relatively late if it comes to competitive ballroom dancing, right? I know you started ballet already very young. Yes, but there's actually no limit in age. I think of doing anything. You might not be able to do it on a certain level because of your age, but that doesn't mean that there is no quality or joy in that. What is your opinion
Absolutely.
about that?
I look at the people who my heart goes out to people who are just competitive and people who start something when they're younger or when they're older and they feel like they still want to. So some people do athletics, including dance, for different reasons. But like I'm so competitive myself. I just have a competitive spirit. I love the spirit of competition. This like let's train hard, let's try to achieve this goal. let's put something out there and just, more competing against yourself, but just the whole energy surrounding, let's get out there, train for a goal, because competition drives goals forward. And that's what I love about it. As soon as you have something that you're planning for, you just get better so quickly. And so a lot of sometimes dancers and other athletes, it's like they want to also still feel like they're doing well and they're getting better. And one thing I see with athletes, they're always questioning themselves, like, am I getting better? And so, for people who are like that, I think that, it's really important to look deeper at, what are the practices I'm doing to get better? And, everybody wants to get better faster. Is there a way? Well, it's debatable, but I believe that there is. There's definitely smarter ways to train.
I think
And,
so.
how can
Yeah.
we train smarter
Yeah, I think so. I think
at any
ballroom
age?
dancing is a relatively young sport if you compare it to other sports, and it's definitely a sport that has not been surrounded with a lot of other specialists. The other strange thing you see in ballroom dancing is that one teacher believes that they have to do everything for their student. You don't see that in other sports where you have a mental coach, where you have a physical therapist with you on staff. When I went to my world championships for martial arts, we had a whole staff with us, with all specialists in helping you to become the best athlete that you could be. Ballroom dancers sometimes think they need to do everything one coach. Well, I might know a lot about Roomba walks, but that doesn't mean that I know everything about how to move your shoulder, just to make it really precise. And I think if you want to serve athletes best, you need to give them not only yourself, but everything that knowledge that you have, like you said. And so I believe in collaboration deeply helping other people's better and not only this is my student and I do that with you. Strange. Our sport is really strange in that perspective, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah,
And fair enough. I understand why coaches feel that way. I mean, it's such very
I do.
specific movements. They're very precise, and most of the coaches that have been doing it have dedicated their life to it. But just like you said, I've dedicated my life to physical therapy, and
Yeah,
it's interesting to, I feel like, get different perspectives because you know dance teachers talk about things, or any coach, they'll talk about things in a different way, and a lot of times, like you said, people need to hear something different for the idea to click. And
yeah,
so having different perspectives, I think, is huge. And I
yeah,
just I didn't expect to, like you said, become a competitive ballroom dancer. But now that I am, that's where a lot of my energy is focused on, as far as, what is my teacher saying and how do I apply it to what I'm doing? And then I take a look around me and I'm like, you know, so I put out a couple YouTube videos as a test because I'm starting Body Spring, and Body Spring started as a company just to help people with their fascia, whether they're trying to avoid injury or have better performance. Somebody asked me after a competition, like, what I did as far as outside of the practice studio. So I made one video on it, and the video got some traction. And so all of a sudden, I have people requesting for me to make other sorts of videos, and I'm flattered, absolutely flattered. But at the same time, I don't want to step on anyone's toes in the industry and say, I know everything about dance, because once I started Latin ballroom dancing, I really see the caliber of learning that these teachers do and this dedication to this movement. I respect that so much. I think it's absolutely incredible.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I think you never step on someone's toes, and if they feel they do, then that's so be it. You made the videos, you put your knowledge out there. You didn't do it to step on someone's toes, like you said. You just do it to share your experience and your knowledge, and people can do with it whatever they need to do. And I am I'm an all dance teacher already, right? So yeah, I do sometimes have that when a student comes in and they say something. I do sometimes think like, yeah, what do you know? But I always try in the end of the day, and it could be just I'm an old grumpy guy. I always think about what is that background of that person. Like myself, I came into dancing relatively late, like you. But I was a trained martial artist, and my dance teacher asked me almost immediately, "Can you help me train my students?" I said, "Why would I help to train your students? I mean, I cannot even dance the way they dance." He said, "No, but your mental capacity and the things that you know about the body are so different. So why would we not work together?" And his name, unfortunately, he passed away, Mina, is Will van Roessel. He's top dancer. He was a top dancer and definitely one of my very best friends and my first dance teacher. And then we started to work together, and he helped me by seeing that the things that I learned in my past life could be very well used for other people. And I was afraid in the beginning to stand in front of a group of students, and they might think like, "Who is this guy? He cannot even dance himself." Right, but very quickly, I mean, we all have that a little bit, that imposter syndrome, right?
Right.
But you're exactly right. What you know about fascia, I could never meet that, and I would love to learn from you if that just by itself as a knowledge, but definitely to help other people as well. And this guy Will, who had this open-minded immediately to say, "Let's collaborate," yeah. And because what people need, at least as what he believed, is they know so little about mental strength and how to train your mental part. And I became very well sought after. I very quickly could make a living out of dancing just by mental coaching people in dancing. And then I felt like you, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I can dance myself too. And that's when I
Yeah.
started my dance journey and my education into dance. But it came much later. So I mean, like I said, don't hold back, please. Don't do that.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And I think it's the circles that you run in. I think that if you want to be good at something, you put yourself around other people who are amazing at it. But then when you put yourself around people who are at the very top level, you look around, you gain perspective if you take a step back because you're like, wow, this is how far I've come. And, I was surprised to see, like, look at all of these people who look up to what I'm doing, whether it's in dancing or physical therapy or my university lecturing. And so just taking a step back, I feel like as far as women empowerment goes and just being a woman, we don't, and just a person in general, I think usually, but we don't always, and like you talk about, especially with trauma, but we don't always own what we are. And I think we'll make excuses for something or make feel like we have to make a lot of disclaimers on something. And I think it's really important. I have this crosstalk in my head. One part of my brain says, do you want to put yourself out there like this? And then another part says, well, I'm trained. I've worked with people. I'm confident. I feel like I have something to offer. And so you look around and you see people admiring you, but then you look at the people that you're usually around and it's the top level people. So of course, you're not that, and you don't have to pretend to be that either.
not at all.
You
No, not
just
at all.
are authentic. You
Yeah.
tell who you are and what your mission is. And yeah, at the end of the day, like, I feel like I do bring value to this space. And so I appreciate you encouraging me to keep going because at the end of the day, having people who support you and encourage you to put yourself out there, especially on a platform like I mentioned, I'm on YouTube, which is extremely vulnerable, but it's so important if you have a message that you want to convey to people. So I really appreciate the encouragement.
Yeah, you absolutely need to do that. And the other people, maybe they do know better than you. But you know what? They are not on YouTube. They don't put a message out there, and they're not trying to help other people. And you don't pretend to know everything, which is what it is. So I think
To be
you always
honest,
should.
I think a lot of the things that we're trying to accomplish with people only know what they've learned or they know from the perspective of how they learned in their own bodies.
That is so true.
And so that's really
Yeah,
what I believe with people who are amazing movers. I really do believe that they were genetically blessed with a great spine. Usually they started early in their life. So there's factors that allowed certain people, along with work ethic and finding the right coaches. So there's so many factors, as well as mindset, trauma, that go into the equation. And even if you break all the factors down and you bring it back to movement, if somebody has a twist at C6, C7, or has a mild scoliosis or has some type of condition, that is going to change everything about the way you need to learn something.
Yeah,
And so that's what I think the main takeaway that I bring to the table is.
definitely. It's amazing, and one of the people that I was lucky enough to know since I was a young dancer, and she was actually at Millennium, Joanna. And if you know her life story about how her body was, and no one would actually believe that she could ever be a dancer, and definitely not then become top, 7 times
Wow.
Blackpool final, not finalist, but winner of Blackpool. No one, if you know, I will not tell that to her. But I had the blessing to know her for a long time, and I interviewed her in a conference last year in a podcast like this. But it was a wide conference where there were a lot of top dancers. There as well. And she tells a little bit about her life stories, her mental struggle, and her things. Nothing of the things come for free. It's all about mindset and wanting to achieve it, but it has also a lot to do is how quickly can you share what you have learned, because then other people are also more willing to share what I know with you because you shared with me what you know. And I think that's the only way to, okay, I'm getting a little bit mushy here, to create a better world. you know, in
Love
in
it.
yeah, in martial arts, you know what it is, Mina. In martial arts, this is how I grew up, right? You have this, like, it's like a movie. We have this old teacher, and he has this secret, right? And we were amazing. My team was truly amazing group of martial artists, and so a lot of people came there. But we promised to never share our secrets. But you know what it is? If we want to evolve as human beings and become better movers, we need to learn from each other. Anything that you can learn, maybe um, about fascia at some point in time, and probably you could never stop that process. And maybe through what I have been through, I know other things. But if we are willing to put these pieces of puzzles together for the next generation, that would be so valuable. And that's what it is. Am I too late to maybe become my wish to maybe also be a Blackpool champion? Probably, but I don't care. I know a lot of stuff. And I keep doing it, and that's why we need to do. And that's why last year we had a conference where we brought literally world champions of dancers together to share their knowledge. We do small things like this. Not that you're a small person, Mina, to have interviews like this. And I believe that's what I believe. I believe and encourage people to share their knowledge freely. You need to make a life out of it too. People will come to you more than when you freely share. I believe that too. Um,
Yeah,
that
I
was that
agree.
was really good, Mina. Yeah, you mentioned that's always the end of my topic is always empowerment of other people, but your whole story was already for empowerment. And if this is the first time you listen to Tell the Everyday Life lesson, then you know the show is a lot about what I call women empowerment. But why, Sean? Why so specifically about women empowerment? I do believe and see that if the world would be managed by people like my own mom was, the world would be in a lot of better place. And with all respect of my dad, but I think it's time that women take a little bit larger say in what's going to happen in the world, and men take a little bit of a step back on this. So that's why it's women empowerment. The other reason why I do, unfortunately, it is 90% of the abuse victims in the world are still women. And although I was unfortunately one of the other 10%, when is this going to stop? And I only believe that if women like Mina step up and become strong in the world is when we finally get some equality in there too. So that was my mushy talk. I always have that a little bit, but that's why it's women empowerment. Just by having you on the show and showing what you can do, not because you are a woman. You probably would have done it if you were a man too, but it happened to be that you're a woman and a strong woman too, and that's why I believe in women empowerment.
Thank you for, filling the role that you do and speaking on the platform that you speak on, because I think that it's very important and so powerful. You know, especially victims of trauma and women in general, I think are, even if they haven't had large traumas, we've had a lot of micro traumas in our life, kind of saying we need to be in this role and we shouldn't speak out. And um, I think that can be really damaging for micro traumas in our life to then grow up and not truly fulfill our dreams.
Yeah, I totally see. My book is called Living a Passion and Purpose After Sexual Abuse. And you can definitely, strike sexual abuse too and replace it with any trauma or micro trauma, because it is often, and we could do a whole talk about this, but it is often our trauma and what we have been through in our lives, and whether it's something serious as sexual abuse or a micro trauma, it sometimes stops us. And we use the word a little bit imposter syndrome here. We can use more fancy words, but bottom line, what Mina actually talks about is something in her life was almost blocking her for going after what she really wanted. But isn't it amazing that that same thing became her power? That same thing that almost blocked her for getting what she want is actually now her powerhouse. And is that not something that I think we should all take away from, that often what we think can block us could also immediately be the thing that fuels our rocket, so to speak. And it's just a mindset change. It's just a really mindset change. And people say that often with me too, which is a little bit true as well. I mean, I was abused since I was 7 until my 12th a year. It became my powerhouse. Does that mean that at times I don't struggle with that same trauma? People, I do. And sometimes it can be really bad. But it doesn't have to stop me entirely. That's it. And I'm sure Mina has, her pains are coming back sometimes too. And sometimes we all want to give up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I still have pain like a human being has pain.
Yeah.
A lot of humans, we experience pain, but I think it's how to bring it down and then manage it. And a lot of it is coming up with strategies. And I think that the strategies that are most talked about sometimes don't work for everybody, or they're not the most effective. So, what you're doing is just amazing, I think, to help people. And um, I think that there needs to be more people out there talking about this platform. Absolutely.
Yes, I hope so too. By the way, guys, it is www.bodyspring.fit if you want to get in contact with Mina. Is there other way they should? And I'll put it in the what we call the show notes too, so that I'll make sure that people can find you. And
Thank
where? What
you.
is your YouTube? Just send me your YouTube channel too, and I will post your YouTube channel as well. Um,
Great. Yeah, I right now I would say the company is in the pre-launch phase. That's the business term for it. So the website is an informational site, but I'm also on Facebook, Body Spring, and YouTube, Body Spring as well, 2 words. And we're also on LinkedIn and Instagram. However, we're not on those platforms as often. But I would love to hear from anyone. If anyone wants to reach out just for a comment, concern, encouragement. I'd love to connect with anybody who saw this and wants to learn more.
Yes. Well, once again, Amina, thank you for being on the show. There are at least a dozen other topics that I would love to go over with you at another time. Please stay a little bit while I say goodbye to our listeners. Um, as well. I actually forgot to look at the comments and reactions that we had. There were a few people here. Let me go very quickly. If there were a few people said hi, looking forward to working with Mina on my feet and prep for my Latin practice and lesson. I don't have a name with it, but someone is already saying that, so that will be cool. Um, so that's that. So keep stay with me for a little bit, Mina, while I say goodbye to the people online, and then we'll have a short after talk. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, and hope to see you maybe in another episode again.
It was an honor. Thank you.
All right, you people. So that was Mina. I think it was utterly interesting. There was so many more things to ask. I hope, as usual, that I didn't talk too much myself, but I think I did pretty well this time. But maybe, I can do always better, right? So please don't forget, as always, to go to my YouTube channel and put your name there as well. I will also post, of course, Mina's information about Body Spring and her YouTube channel so that you can find it there. Um, this is let me go back a little bit. Tuesday we're back with the place and tell, and that would be already episode 218. This was episode 217. We have another topic. I don't know yet what it is, but come back to us at 12 o'clock Dallas time, always on Tuesday at the place. With having said that, I'll say to you till next time. All right, Mina, we're back. I'll unmute you. Try to unmute you. Don't know how to unmute you. Hello. Yeah, still can't hear you. Say something, Mina.
Something, Mina.
Yes. Yes, you're back. All right. Thank you so much. That was so good. I hope you liked it.
Oh, I loved it. Are we still on the air? I'm not sure.
No, we're not on the air anymore.
Okay, it says on the air on my computer still, so I just wanted to check.